If you don't know this, sheep have to have a shepherd. If sheep do not have a shepherd, because sheep are not very smart, they end up in crevices. That's why the shepherds have a crook, so they can pull the sheep back out. They want to make sure that sheep don't get into water because of all of the wool. They end up drowning. So they have to pull them back out. Sheep, if they're not led to grazing pastures, what ends up happening is they'll end up starving. And Jesus said, as he was standing there, he was looking out at the people that he had been ministering to as he went. And he said, listen, he had a compassion, and he said, listen, they're helpless, they're harassed. They're like sheep without a shepherd. And Jesus says, listen, we are like that also, those of us who do not know Christ. What ends up happening is that we, like sheep, will end up going and pasturing in fields that we don't need to be in, and we begin to pasture on those sinful things, and pretty soon we wake up and we realize that we're starving to death. We'll end up in places where we need someone to pull us out. And Jesus says, listen, they're helpless, they're harassed. And when did Jesus see them? As he was going. As he was going. Listen, oftentimes what happens, we're willing to pray for compassion. God, give me compassion. God, give me compassion. And when God gives us compassion, we'll go. My experience has shown time and time again, year after year after year, that when you obediently go about proclaiming the gospel, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, teaching, meeting the needs, when you're in the middle of that is when the compassion begins to happen. And you begin to get new eyes. And you begin to feel the emotion that wells up within you that, God, are you asking me to be involved in this? And so often it's easy to sit back and to look at groups of people, addicts, Muslims, skateboarders, this group, that group, and think, I don't want to be involved in that. But when we get involved with people, when our lives begin to rub up against other people's lives, we begin to realize this, is that they're like me and I'm like them. And there, but by the grace of God, go I. And God, in the midst of that, as you're there, he begins to give you an eye. He begins to well up that compassion within you, that he's calling you. And listen, I don't want you to mistake that this is something for over there, because he wants us to go over there when we're there, but he also wants us to go over there, which is across the street, over the back fence, over the cubicle, over the gymnasium floor to the other side to talk to somebody. And today, he's calling us to pray, because in praying ignites our sending. He's asking us, he's commanding us, he's showing us right here, will we pray? And some of us are just waiting. We're waiting on the big red sign, the big red sign. God, if you'll show me the big red sign, then I'll go do this, and I'll go do this, and I'll be involved here. I want you to hear this. We are all called. We're all called, and we all have the same calling. You know what that is? To share the love of Christ anywhere with anyone we come in contact with as the need opens up. Many times we think it'd be easy. Hey, we'll hire some staff people. We'll get a pastor. We'll get a youth pastor. We'll get a missions pastor, and they'll handle all that. Listen, God has called all of us. This is a call for each and every one of us. A call to pray. A call to go. A call to listen. A call to be sent. Some of you are thinking, man, listen, have you been praying for your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors? Let me ask you that. Do you know them by name? Have you been praying for them by name? Because I can tell you this, when we have a need, we call that need out by name and ask God to intervene. Let me ask you this. Do you have neighbors who do not know Jesus Christ, and are you calling them by name? Many of us think, man, well, if God would send a sign, if he would send an angel, then I'd, listen, here you go. I may not look pretty, but I'm your angel today. Go across the street and share the gospel with your friends. That's a word for me also. Today I sent a text to some buddies, and I said, I need you to pray for me. Because this is a word for me. This is a word for us. Listen, it's easy to come and say, listen, we got a great worship team, we got a great kids ministry, we got programs. But listen, we want to be a praying people, a people who pray, God, would you intervene in the lives of my friends?